Do you remember back in 2015 when a certain indie game was getting very, very popular? Five Nights at Freddy's was first released in August of 2014 to critical acclaim. Many people loved the franchise and it was such a breath of fresh air for horror. Instead of free-roaming dark and bleak environments, you were confined to one room, only able to block the doors and check the cameras for anyone, or anything, that was after you. A few months later, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 was released to even more acclaim. With much more chaos and frights than before, it was, and still is, one of my favorite horror games I have ever played. Though, in this brief period after the second game, fans speculated that a third was already in the works. And when a fan released a game called Five Nights at Freddy's 3, things got a little out of hand. This is the story of the Return to Freddy's. When this game had come out in December of 2014, many had thought it was a real deal and truly believed that it was another sequel to the acclaimed franchise. Though this isn't the case, for after its initial release, the franchise's creator, Tyler, was contacted by Scott Cawthon, who informed him that he would need to change the game's name or it would be taken down. Not only was the game using stolen assets from both of Scott Cawthon's games, but the entire code from the first two FNAF games were used to make these first two games. For the second game in the lineup, Tyler decided to make his own assets. They looked like dog ass, but at least they were his own. This also marks the first appearance of some original characters, Lockjaw and Kitty Fazcat, made by Tyler's girlfriend. And I want you to remember her for later. Just keep her in the back of your mind. Within that same time span, the game had also garnered some more controversy. One of the characters in the game, Sugar, looks kinda familiar, and it's stolen from another prominent fan game, Five Nights at Candy's, made by Emil Mako. When Tyler was confronted about this, he didn't even change the character. He didn't even respect Emil's concerns. And when the game was eventually updated, new files were found calling Emil a bitch. That sounds bad, but this is only the beginning of a long rabbit hole. For the third game in the franchise, Tyler once again made his own assets, but also once again stole the code from FNAF 3. Nothing else to say about it, other than it existed, and there's a snake animatronic, which is kinda cool. For the fourth game of the franchise, we have a rare occasion on our hands. Tyler made his own assets and his own code. Though there are a couple things I still need to say about the game. The overall gameplay is pretty fine, nothing special about it. Though, while I will go through the monstrous story in another video or live stream, I have to say, this game's ending is fucking stupid. After the fifth night, the purple guy is seen walking around in a building until he meets the main antagonist of the game. Can you guess what this man's name is? I'm gonna give you a couple seconds. Wrong. It's Gron. And you know what? I can live with a stupid name. There are literally people out here named Bartholomew. It is what it is. But the stupidest thing is, he's standing in front of a golden Lockjaw suit. And knowing FNAF lore, he's gonna end up in that suit, ain't he? Can you just try for a second to guess how he manages to get into the suit? Wrong. He slips on soap and falls into it. He falls into a spring lock suit that is supposed to kill you at the slightest movements. My man did a 280-degree kickflip off a wall into a manual from Tony Hawk's Pro Skaters 1+2 into a deadly spring lock suit that will kill him at the slightest movements. Okay then. And finally, this is actually one of the last games Tyler ever finished. Oh, but it doesn't end there. It doesn't. This is only the first chapter. I have to ask you something. Have you ever wanted to see an absolute train wreck in action? Well, look no further than the fifth game in the franchise. Originally being called The Return to Freddy's Remastered, then The Return to Freddy's Rebooted, The Return to Freddy's 5 is the fifth installment in the franchise, and it's a doozy. I'll tell you that. Being announced on May 26, 2015, the game has never officially come out, meaning it has almost been 2,000 days since it was originally announced. The only official product to ever come out of this was one full demo. Though the game is impressive for being a free roam game in Click Team Fusion, the game suffers from so much. First off, there's a lot of similarities between this demo and FNAF 4 and Sister Location. But you know what? That's fine. Jolly 3 did the exact same thing and that game is great. But the endings to this demo are so stupid. In the demo, there are multiple floors that you have to explore and climb. And on the second to last floor, your character lights the factory on fire, meaning you have to escape. And once you reach the final floor, there's one lone animatronic slumped on the ground. That is called the torture device. It's real edgy, I know. There are 9 possible endings here, though I'm only going to talk about 3. The rest are on the wiki page, which I'll leave in the description. Though if you're going to join the Discord, there's like a little bit of racism and homophobia there.
If you're racist and you know it, clap your hands. What the fuck, bro?
So be warned. Alright, back on topic. The worst ending occurs when you leave the torture device alone and leave. This somehow causes the apocalypse as the animatronics escape the factory. Yeah, I don't get it either, and I spent 3 months researching this. Anyway, the true ending occurs when you get into the torture device and die. Okay then. Finally, the special ending occurs whenever you somehow destroy the machine located in the factory, and this causes a minigame to play showing a child crying in front of his plushies. This child's name is BFP and is a self-insert for Tyler. Great. Besides all that, the game went through literal development hell, as Tyler retired from making games during its development and gave the project to a man named Yin Koyu. The funny thing is, Yin Koyu isn't real. It's just an alt account for Tyler. After that whole debacle, the project was given to many small dev teams who all ultimately decided to scrap the project. The game swapped hands multiple times, and eventually all of the developers decided to scrap their versions. The only remnants of the games are many revival projects you can find on GameJolt, which I will link in the description. On a small side note, the Return to Freddy's 5 was supposed to have a mode that mirrored the FNAF series' own FNAF world. In this mode, there was to be adult humor and mechanics ripped straight from FNAF World. Thankfully, this did not come to fruition. Do you remember Tyler's girlfriend from earlier? You know, the one that I told you to remember? Well, they broke up. And to get back at his girlfriend, you know what Tyler did? 2 words. Stripper, animatronics. You might think I'm joking, and I'm not. This game was supposed to have animatronic strippers. Thank God, this game never came to fruition. Here's some posters to prove this, by the way. I had to look at these and edit these. With these next 2, they're actually both fan games that were just absorbed into the Return to Freddy's canon. With Rad SLA, there isn't much to say. The main animatronic from the game is actually just Tyler's fursona. For the Return to Freddy's Desolation, again, there isn't much to say. There's literally no information, pictures, or even story details about the game. Though there is a demo you can see in the background. That's about it. Did you know that Tyler also tried to reboot the franchise? A game was made called The Return to Freddy's Chapter 1. It was supposedly a complete reboot of the franchise. It never came out, and there's no information on it whatsoever, so I can only assume it's dead. So, this is it, huh? The final game. After almost 5 years of mediocre, stolen, and just bad games, so many convoluted plot lines, the culmination of all of this, finally a reboot to fix this franchise. The Road That Falls. Honestly, it looks pretty good. There's this kind of deer-looking Wendigo thing on the Game Jolt page, and all I have to do is download the game.
Connection terminated. But I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assume, although you have indeed been called. You have all been called here. This is where your story ends. This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still, and give up your spirits. For most of you, I believe there is peace, and perhaps more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, friend.